This is the Deseret News National Edition, when your family needs to know more.
Good morning, I'm Mike Hedrick. Welcome to National Edition. Recent hits at the box office have sent Hollywood a very clear message. Movie studios need to find more faith. Earlier this month, movie execs, producers, and some writers gathered for a family entertainment and faith-based summit. Producer Candace Madsen attended and discovered where this niche movie market is headed.
This is the third year Variety has hosted this conference, and the event sold out. There's no doubt the faith-based market is growing, but it's still considered a niche market in Hollywood.
Your son had a near-death experience.
He saw things that I can't really explain.
Heaven is for Real struck a chord with middle American audiences. So did God's Not Dead and Son of God.
I've had reports of a young prophet of Nazareth.
No one got together and said we're going to release all these movies in 2014.
You saw my grandfather? Where did you see him?
In heaven.
They organically happen that way. But what I love about it is that there's an audience, millions of people saying, we want more content.
Devon Franklin is a senior vice president with Columbia Pictures and produced Heaven is for Real.
You saw heaven? What does it look like?
It's beautiful.
He's also a preacher.
One of my deepest desires is to make content that can inspire people. And reading the book Heaven is for Real and really being affected personally by the Burpo story, being able to bring that to the screen was truly a huge blessing.
And the profits are also huge. Heaven is for Real only cost $12 million to make and so far has grossed more than $90 million. God's Not Dead had a budget of just $2 million and has pulled in $60 million. Those are numbers Hollywood can't ignore.
Fox recognized it was an underserviced market a long time ago.
In 2004, 20th Century Fox distributed Passion of the Christ. It made $600 million worldwide, becoming the highest-grossing R-rated film in U.S. history. They just released the Bible miniseries, produced by Roma Downey and Mark Burnett. Executive Vice President Simon Swart expects the faith-based movie trend to continue. But the key is still making a movie that appeals to a wider audience.
When you start working on faith-based projects, the definition of Christianity is not a homogeneous definition. It's incredibly broad.
The scripture says to treat all strangers as though they were angels.
Mission Pictures International recently began producing movies based on the Christian book series, Love Finds You.
I think the more you run from your troubles, the more lost you become.
But their version is more mainstream.
So if you want to read the book, it's more religious, but the movie will be seed planters. We're more of a seed planting company.
A lot of independent cable channels are looking for a steady supply of faith and family programming.
Family became, oh no, this is a babysitter for my kids and this is mindless but innocuous content. And now we're saying, no, it has to be sophisticated, interesting, and entertaining, and if it is, then everybody watches it and it's okay.
BYU TV is focusing its efforts on original content it owns outright and appeals to a broad audience with shows like Granite Flats.
We are a Mormon-owned station, so in the writer's room were a lapsed Catholic, a Buddhist, a Mormon, a Greek Orthodox, and a Reformed Jew. Okay. And so it was, you can imagine the conversations of faith that took place in there.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, over the course of this trial, I will prove beyond all doubt that this man is innocent.
He's not on trial. She is.
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure about her.
The sketch comedy show Studio C has also been a big hit for the network.
It would be a fascinating study in behavioral psychology to show some of those clips and show some of the Saturday Night Live clips and just ask a general audience, which ones do you think are funnier?
The CEO of Walden Media thinks Studio C would win.
Forget all the academic conversation about darkness and light. Yeah. Which one made you laugh?
Walden Media specializes in entertainment for the whole family and will release The Giver in August.
The way things look and the way things are very different.
The plot centers around the power of choice and includes heavy issues like euthanasia and infanticide.
I think that families want to have, some provocative themes and have a safe way to explore them.
Whether the content is faith-based or family fare, movie execs agree it's got to first be entertaining.
Entertainment is first. You have to entertain people, and if you do, then you have the right to edify and educate and ennoble them, but you can't really do it the other way around.
Now, the next faith-based movie coming out is Persecuted. It's a thriller about religious persecution and hits theaters on July 18th. Now, this is a movie that is rather political, so it could polarize audiences, but it has a pretty strong following on social media, so Mike, it'll be interesting to see how it does.
Yeah, very fascinating, this whole topic here. Now, any movie that does well, it seems Hollywood just tries to duplicate it, right? So are studios trying to take advantage of this market here by maybe just throwing the label faith-based onto it?
Yeah, there was a lot of discussion about that because audiences now, a lot of these movies are coming out, and so audiences are expecting a higher quality. 1 out of 10 movies fails and doesn't make any money. So if there was a magic formula, studios would obviously be making those movies.
Certainly.
So the key, though, number 1 is still the story. And it's got to appeal to a broader audience.
You've got to have a great story, bottom line. Okay, that's interesting. All right, you told me you got to sit down basically on the discussion there where you have writers, producers, execs, whatever, pitching, some of their ideas to the studios. So which ones actually got made?
Well, these are ones that they want to get made.
Okay.
And this is probably my favorite part of the whole thing. It was writers and producers. Some of them had a script, some of them had an idea. For instance, my favorite was Jack and Toller's, which would be about the friendship between J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis.
Okay.
Of course, huge to a faith-based audience.
Oh, yeah.
But what was interesting is they were saying, it's got to be fast-paced movie, kind of like The King's Speech. And you need a $100 million budget because they thought you've got to bring, the characters to life, what influenced them. But this definitely would be a big budget movie.
And that's an interesting thing I thought about your piece as well. Talking about the money involved in these, a lot of these are these faith-based or low budget movies. And it seems like if you wanted to stick to Hollywood, you want people to go see it, you got to have more money invested there, so they can add whatever they need to, special effects or whatever it may be, so it's more entertaining to audiences. Does that seem to be the case or not?
Yeah, I mean, you look at Noah. I mean, that was a studio, big picture, big budget, going for the big audience. But they also have to make a lot more money. And so now that you have Netflix and different cable outlets, there is you can go after a smaller market, but you still have to target the demographic. And just calling it faith-based doesn't mean that you're going to bring in the audience. So if you can appeal, like with Heaven is for Real. Definitely faith-based, but there was a message and people could relate to it even if they weren't necessarily Christian. And if you were Christian, you could certainly find themes of Christianity. Okay, that makes sense. All right, is it getting easier, do you think, to get quality faith-based movies made? I think the standard is definitely, it's a lot higher than maybe it used to be.
Okay.
Certainly like Heaven is for Real is higher quality. And I think now, there's definitely an appetite. When you look at the numbers. And the other thing to consider is movies now can't only do well in the US, they have to hit the international market. And faith-based movies are actually huge. Because you look at China, you look at the Middle East, or you look at India, they appreciate family and modesty is huge.
Even if Christianity, because obviously Christianity is big here in the US, not as much when you go across the world. So they're still interested in these?
It is, because it touches on themes that they like. For instance, Passion of the Christ did better in per capita in Saudi Arabia than it did in the US.
Interesting. All right, great story, very fascinating. So, all right, switching gears here right now to your family's safety. Practically every piece of furniture that you sit on is covered with chemical flame retardants, and those same chemicals are now showing up in our bodies. Straight ahead, we're going to take a closer look at new measures aimed at curbing toxic chemicals.